this session. So welcome everyone. This is Krishna Bista, uh, Associate Professor of Higher Education, speaking from Morgan State University, Research Public University, located here in Baltimore, Maryland. This afternoon, we are celebrating International Education Week. This is a special week, and it's a part of the International Education Week. We are we have organized a special theme focusing on Nepalese higher education. So again, for those participants who are listening us, please mute your microphone so we can avoid echoes and background noise. So again, thank you and welcome everyone. So here are some housekeeping rules for our participant. Please use your chat rooms for the questions and answers. And to begin with, I'd like to go with the background of International Education Week. This is a special event. So this week, we are celebrating International Education Week. International Education Week is a joint initiative of the U.S. Department of State and the U.S. Department of Education since it started back in 2000. International Education Week is an opportunity to celebrate, benefit, and international education and exchange program worldwide. American college and university this week are featuring a series of international events and programs across the country, across their campuses. So international education programs are prepared for American students and the staff faculty member for a global environment and attract the future leaders from abroad to study, learn, and exchange their ideas. Remember, United States has a larger immigrant population than any other country in the world, with 89 million immigrants, which is 28% of US population. So this week, we are so fortunate to have Morgan State University considering Nepal as a country highlight, country features. And also, I truly appreciate for taking time for my five guest speaker who are joining us this afternoon. And the part of the series came also from the book, Global Perspective on International Student and Higher Education in Nepal. So we are very fortunate to have these speakers. So you can see on the slide, the speakers, myself, Dr. Nitya Timsina from Denmark, Dr. Uttam Gaulee, he's Associate Professor, faculty member here at Morgan, Dr. Carm, Associate Professor of Higher Ed from Oslo Metro, Norway, and Mr. Surendra Subedi, scholar and principal from Kathmandu Model College. And those who are listening us, please continue using the chat room for your questions. So here is the entire list of my panel, my guest for this afternoon. Again, we have Nitya. He has finished his doctoral degrees from Denmark, and he's an active scholar researcher. He's also a journalist. He has published extensively in Kathmandu Post and other venues in Nepal. Dr. Carm has done extensive research in Nepal and other part of the globe. Recently, she has organized a joint program to several universities in Nepal, including doctoral students and also research in ICT. Dr. Uttam Gaulee is the president of the Star Scholars Network, a network of 15,000 scholars around the globe, associate professor of higher ed in a community college leadership program, and another influential speaker, researchers, colleague from Nepal, Mr. Surendra Subedi. He's a college principal of Kathmandu College, and he's also our first founding country director of our Star Scholars Network. So with these introductions, I'd like to request Dr. Uttam Gaulee to take his first 5 minutes to talk about Nepal Brain Gain Center and Diaspora Initiative. Dr. Gaulee?
Am I audible now?
You are, yes.
Hey, it's great to be together with amazing colleagues again. Thank you, Dr. Bista, for that generous introduction, and appreciate you giving me the first chance to speak today on Nepal Brain Gain Center and Diaspora Initiative. This is something that is very close to my heart. After I came to United States, I tried to understand how the economy works and how young people are engaged in different communities. So as a higher education policy researcher, I took part in these kinds of conversations with the university leadership, with the industry partners, policymakers, and how educators and employers work together to engage young people. And that prompted me to carry out a global survey of Nepali diaspora to come up with an idea that now Nepal government has adopted as Brain Gain Center, which is a very, very creative way to leverage the diaspora resource for national development. Dr. Bista, if you would like to advance my slide. Yeah, so let's not talk about brain drain because nobody likes it, right? Everybody wants some gain. So the narrative here, you may be not surprised because in the United States, there's a lot of complaint about the quality of human capital that come to United States. So our president thinks that immigrants are a burden. They bring lots of problems rather than any intellectual input. So this is the narrative we are in the midst of, but under the statistics, as I was looking at the statistics from Migration Policy Institute here in the United States, that is showing that some shift in the composition of immigration flows over the past decade, with immigrants' human capital rising sharply, unlike the narrative. So most notably, 48% of recently arrived immigrants to the United States, those coming between 2011 and 2015, were college graduates, compared to just 27% of arrivals a quarter century earlier. So in the United States, 31% of the young people are college graduates. Those coming from outside the United States are 48%. So the narrative is a illusion, and a lot of people are carried away with that. So it is also reflective of increasing educational attainment across the world, because it's been changing, and because English has become the global lingua franca, especially in business, international trade, science, education, and entertainment. A lot of people coming to the United States these times, more recently, are actually of higher competent than those who came to build this country. This country is known as the country of immigrants, as you know, right? So even within the United States, if I may go to the next slide, Dr. Bista, I want to present a scenario. Brain gain is, again, it's like a game. Even between the states in the United States, there is a lot of competition. For example, the state of Georgia has come up with an idea of Georgia Hope Scholarship. They want to keep their best and brightest in their states. And Florida does Bright Futures Scholarship Program. They use their state lottery proceeds to originate 3 distinct scholarships to, for standout academic achievers. And if you go to Louisiana, for example, they are losing a lot of bright people to other states. So they want to keep their best and brightest by offering this TOPS scholarship. TOPS scholarship is Taylor Opportunity Program for students. Kentucky has KEYS, Kentucky Educational Excellence Scholarship. So this is a phenomena that cuts across the board. It is everywhere talked about. It's not just in the developing countries like Nepal. But what I'm going to talk to you a little bit is what Nepal is doing. Nepal is becoming very, very creative in adopting this idea of brain gain. Dr. Bista, help me advance the slide. So Brain Gain Center is established recently. It is a unit at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that is created to recognize and foster contribution of Nepal's social and economic progress by the many diaspora Nepali experts and professionals around the world. So Nepal apparently is not taking a strategy to keep their best and brightest, but to use them from wherever they are. It's a brilliant idea because the world has changed so much that we can now humanize technology to connect people to their roots more easily than ever before. So tapping onto this potential of connecting diaspora back to their roots, Brain Gain Center has been established. So this is not a totally new idea. Actually, Deng Xiaoping transformed the impoverished country into an economic and political superpower. And Manmohan Singh stimulated the stagnant economy of India. So these giants already experimented this, but it was difficult probably for them because they had to create incentives for people to come back home and contribute. But Nepal has taken a route to just use the spillover power, spillover hours of the competent people from around the world to connect back to their roots. So this idea again comes from the results of a brain gain and brain drain and higher education study involving a global online survey of Nepali diaspora and interviews with key policy informants with higher education leadership experience. So a lot of people connected to Star Scholars Network were very intensely involved in establishing this Brain Game Center and doing this research. Dr. Bista is critical, and so was Dr. Sharma at some stage. And so it envisions, the Brain Game Center envisions a more engaged and vibrant young population for the nation's transformation by leveraging the demographic advantage. I think I will stop at this point and see if I get any questions. I don't want to dominate the entire conversation here. Dr. Bista, if that is okay? And thank you for showing me the chapter. Yes, it was an honor to be included in Dr. Bista's book.
Thank you. We'll take the questions later on. And I see in the room, we have our distinguished guest, Dr. Jit Joshi, all the way from California State University System. He has been doing wonderful.
Can I say salute to Dr. Joshi?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, that is our honor. So in the next few minutes, I'll be talking more about the Nepalese students in overseas higher education. That is the area of or the focus of Nepalese media recently. And this week, International Institute of Education (IIE) has released the data of the the student who have pursued their higher education in the US. But considering what's going on in Nepal and the Nepalese outbound students, that was some sort of area of interest for me for a while. So hopefully in the next couple of minutes, or maybe in less than 5 minutes, I'd like to explore and share the updates on Nepalese students who are planning to go overseas. So these are the some of the media highlights that I have taken from the screenshot from the newspaper that I read. The things that inspired me to look more details was how the government of Australia was also more eager and curious to look into the enrollment trend of the Nepalese students in Australia. And the Nepal government has made no objection certificate queries in last few months. And so from the June all the way to now, there are lots of debates about whether Nepal government should take an initiative to stop Nepalese students or scholar going overseas, or should have some different plan and an initiative. So this is something, the area of concern for our government of Nepal, as well as the scholars who have been doing research in higher education, student mobility. So you can see the highlights. And the court case went all the way to Supreme Court of Nepal, and the Supreme Court has issued a stay order to the Education Ministry in Nepal. That means the student now can receive their no objection letters. And probably many of you are already familiar that in Nepal we have more than 370 educational consultancies to support these students who plan to go other countries for further studies or education in any disciplines. So with that background, you can see that the one of the national newspaper in Nepal has given the first page. This is the first time they were focusing on educational topics rather than the topics in other areas. Um, and again, a side note for those participants, if you are using the microphone, please mute it so that we can avoid background noise. Thank you. So here I was calculating the loss in the US numbers. It says it is estimate at least 3.4 billion US dollar loss for Nepal because of at least 62,000 outbound students who are planning or who received the no objection certificates to study in 72 countries last year. And the national newspaper has highlighted the number of countries that the most attractive destination for Nepalese students going overseas. And as you see here, the chart indicates the Japan and Australia are the top two countries for Nepalese students. Australia, 36,000 Nepalese students planning to go there or study currently, or last year chose to study there, and another 8,000 plus students who received a study, package to study in Japan. So this is just a snapshot of how many students are actually leaving country for education in another country. So here is a top few countries that I found in the newspaper, but the list continues, and this has been one of the major concern for the government of Nepal, the Ministry of Education in Nepal. So as you see, the Australia, Japan, Cyprus, India, China, or Canada, US are the top destination for Nepalese students who are planning to go overseas. And I also pull out some data, recent information from the UNESCO. UNESCO has more systematic record of the student mobility from across the globe, I would say. So Australia, Japan, actually the earlier data from the Nepal newspaper has not represented true pictures. Australia 21,000, Japan 12,000, United States 12,000, India 10,000. These are the top four countries. Nepalese students are pursuing their higher studies. So total here it says 64,000 last year. However, Nepal does not have any systematic data of the number of students that bring in Nepalese higher education. College institutions like Nepal Bhasa Campus and many others, they do have, our Kathmandu University and other few private colleges are hosting international students, but Nepal government or UNESCO does not have any record of how many students currently are studying in Nepal. So probably this is also one area to look into. And here is an interview with Ram Sharan Sapkota. He is the Secretary of the Education Ministry of Education from Nepal. Actually, he has identified all the best possible rationale of why Nepali students are pursuing their education in overseas. Here, and I would like to highlight the last 3 points that he has focused. That indicates that Nepal government and the scholars have already noticed the best solution, but probably it depends on what they want to do. So they want to, their perception is that these students are coming back, or they brings new ideas, new experience, which is true. And however, they are also looking into the interest of Nepalese students, those who are studying in the currently in Nepalese institution of higher education. And the government is focusing on how we can make believe these students pursue their education in Nepal, or they stay in Nepal, and the country can reduce the number of students who are going overseas, which is excellent. However, we should not forget that there are certain challenges, but I like to focus on the positive aspect of why Nepal can do much better than what we are currently doing. And the initiative that I shared earlier with our Dr. Jit Joshi and many of other colleagues across the country in the US and overseas who have been doing a lot to bring new curriculum, new program, even new institution of higher learning, higher education in Nepal. So please remember that Nepal has been an intellectual lab for anthropologists, linguistic and intellectuals. Much happening today is of high value for our for our global society, to higher education in the world. So Nepal has been a showcase. And Nepal has been outstanding in many of the areas, including literacy rate, which has been 5% in 1950s, and we were now 60% or more improved. And similarly, the major political shift has also given new dimension to higher education in Nepal. So while rethinking the higher education in Nepal, we can bring a number of ideas, new ideas, or number of innovations, changes that has been taking place. Look at the effect of globalization of the society and internationalization of education across the globe, the adaptation and emerging technology, the advancement of new discipline within the country, new initiative for the universities like Gandaki University, Madan Bhandari, or University of Nepal. These are the new initiatives going on in Nepal, and there are lots of positive stories to tell for the scholars who are interested to study in Nepal or to look into the research in initiatives in Nepal. For instance, we can see the emergence of number of specialized universities in Nepal: Buddhist University, Sanskrit University, agricultural universities, and the new discipline, interdisciplinary studies, rural development. These are the great areas, and all the interdisciplinary programs or technology-based program like a key technology, energy system, sustainable development goals and programs, research-based programs, and then foreign university-affiliated programs like the King's College in Kathmandu. So they have been doing wonderful jobs, wonderful programs. And one of the speaker in a few minutes will talk about how Kathmandu Model College has been one of the colleges in town to include or to maximize the potential of transnational collaboration to develop the faculty development program in the country. So Nepalese higher education must take far more significant innovation in effectiveness in the research and production of the knowledge. It must redesign the programs to produce the workforce need in the country. There are lots of things to do, but the positive aspect also should not be forgotten, that there are lots of things going on positively as a part of the political shift, as well as the rechanges that's taking place at Tribhuvan University, the flagship university in the country, and the educators, policy level people like the secretary from the Ministry of Education. They have realized the need, and they are taking initiatives to improve the current education in Nepal. I'm pretty much sure that they will focus on these educational system. And also invite scholars who have been in a diaspora. Dr. Gaulee earlier mentioned the positive initiative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that the Brain Gain Center, connecting people across the globe, and we should not believe that Nepal will have just if you look into the number of students who are going overseas, that makes you feel that one day Nepal will have only Guards and Himalayas, but do not, I like to leave an optimistic note that we'll have more than that. We'll have, something Nepal will be doing soon to catch up the global needs and global education. So without, further note on this, I'd like to invite my next guest, Dr. Nitya Timsina, all the way from Denmark. Dr. Timsina, I hope you can hear me. Please check your microphone, unmute.
Now it's looking clear.
Okay, good. Dr. Timsina, welcome. Welcome to International Education Week.
Thank you, Dr. Bista. I'm very grateful to you for offering me this wonderful opportunity to share my thoughts on International Education Week. I'm in fact very much privileged. I feel very much proud to talk to you. In fact, for the last couple of months, I have not been talking or presenting anything because I'm only writing and reading. So publishing for the journal, all this and that, I'll not take more time, but first I'll briefly talk about what was my research about. And this article, a snapshot of my PhD thesis, which I defended at Raskind University, talks about basically three sharp policy shifts in Nepal, beginning with 1951 to down there to 2006 and 7. Before that, I will briefly tell my background as a reporter. As you already outlined, I was working for the Kathmandu Post, writing educational stories. My main beat was education and health also, but also, sometimes politics and all.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing that actually triggered me to think about doing this, research or pursuing a career in higher education was back in Kathmandu Post. Well, I was reporting for, education. I was also reporting political events. Where there was I remember a particular scene in 2006. If you remember, most of you know that April 19, 2006 was the last day, the victory rally in Kathmandu. I was reporting, and a scene like French Revolution was created there, and the sense, as if only after the king's head had been cut off in Nepal, the progress would occur. That was a sense of delight and sense of freedom prevailing then, and at the same time, World Bank. I was reporting many other stories about World Bank projects in Nepal, along with many other development organizations that they were sending us for their field work reporting to Kathmandu Post. In one of the scenarios I came across, in fact, I accidentally, stumbled on Dr. Rajendra Joshi, many of you know, and he gave me that book, Higher Education Reform Project in Nepal. And then actually at that time, I wasn't only reporting for the Kathmandu, was a small snapshot of that, what it was about. It was about decentralization and autonomous higher education, which was in the making in Nepal, and I was interested by that. And I started working on this. Actually, the question I tried to raise in my study or this research, which I told you was a snapshot appeared in this book, Decentralized and Autonomous Higher Education, how Nepalese higher education derives its name from legitimacy. Was that whether these terms, names, or vocabulary derived by higher education in Nepal arose freely, from the Nepalese intellectual capacity or the self-capacity to reason, or from their free will, let's say, or for that matter, or that, is it from the self-consciousness kind of some agentive capacity that it is coming in Nepal? How I was interested in that question actually, and then the thesis, all these stories, all the way lead down to show that it was actually a training imparted by the discourse of development in Nepal and the nation building, all that has dragged on to this date from 1950s. All this led me to see that, and then that shows that when I talk about shifts, actually, I'll not take much time on this one, but I'll talk about the shift, which interested me actually. The shift, when I talk about policy shift, I also talk about the thinking, shifting thoughts in Nepal. If you look at 1950, 51, we had a thought. When I'm talking about centralization thinking in education in Nepal, higher education in Nepal, began in that period of time when Nepal was gripped by nation building and development. The Nepali term is Vikas. Everybody knows that. And we come down to 1956 from 1951, and suddenly there is a Nepal National Educational Planning Commission. Please correct me if I'm wrong there. And which declared that we have belonged to the world now. We are not just living in Nepal, but we belong to the world. So that ended some sort of perceived isolation of Nepal, and that logic, that was the context, and that contextualized centralized education system. But you come down to 1971 certainly, and then you'll see National Education System Plan. National Education System Plan, where I was very much interested about knowing, there was a small statement I like to read out. We will not surrender our sovereignty, not beg for dhoti or something, will not beg India or China or international community to survive or live in Nepal was the context, that rationale that actually informed that centralized logic, centralization in higher education. Higher education must be governed by the state. It must be controlled. It must be freely accessible to all the Nepalese, and it is for the development of Nepal. That was the logic behind that reform. And then we come down to after 1971, let's say 1990, there happens another decentralization thinking. Suddenly we see the end of centralization and decentralization thinking is coming there. And where monarchy became aloof from the people, multi-party politics is the base, is the logic, the rationale behind why decentralization and Nepal is so important. Is it okay? Is it okay, everybody listening?
Yes, it's going well. Yes.
Thanks.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, if I'm running out of time, please warn me, sir.
All right, then would you focus on the scholar, Nepalese student and scholars and their transnational activities that they have been doing in Nepal? Would you connect to Nepal to?
Oh yes, I will.
Denmark to Nepal, Nepal to Denmark, vice versa.
Yes. In Nepal, if you ask me if I understood you correctly, when I can talk Nepal only from my fieldwork experience. The last time I was there was in 2013, and of course recently also. But I was actually not doing my research. But in 2013, I can recollect some of the works I was doing, and some of the talks and some of the informal chats I had with the scholars there. In fact, not the scholars as such, I mean, but the students at, for example, engineering campus, Tribhuvan University campus, Ilam campus, Sankardeep campus, all of these were undergoing a reform sponsored by the World Bank project. And those students I met there were desirous, mesmerized, they desire to go out of Nepal. They don't want to stand there. Many of them I interview, if you see in my thesis, in fact, I also touch in this article, in this chapter in the book, some of the voices of the students there. They never wanted to stay longer in Nepal, but as quick as possible, they wanted to go out of Nepal. And only reason is that there was no peace in Nepal, there was no opportunities in Nepal, there was no jobs in Nepal for them to do. So we were very much, there was some kind of anxiety hunting them.
Dr. Timsina, I like to stop you there, and thank you again. Yes, you did a wonderful documentation of interviewing all the current and former chancellor, vice chancellor of the university in Nepal. Yes, that was awesome. And again, the rationale of the brain gain center, as well as some of the transnational activities that we have been doing here, is to connect with the scholars in Nepal and abroad. And that's the goal. And then same time, I also request our audience to type their questions in the chat rooms. So far as we have received a couple of questions, we'll take them in a few minutes. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Professor Carm, all the way from Oslo Metro University. And please tell us, before you start the slide, please tell us some of the current project that you have been doing at Tribhuvan University, Kathmandu University, and the scholars that those who are pursuing PhD from Oslo Metro in collaboration with this university. Dr. Carm, unmute your microphone. Please unmute your microphone. Dr. Carm, still we do not hear you. Okay, maybe we can hear now. Can you?
Now maybe, is it okay?
Yes,
now?
yes,
Okay.
we can hear you now. Good.
Thank you. Sorry for that. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Bista, for inviting me to this. I also enjoyed, and I also appreciate that I also could take part in the book Higher Education in Nepal. I'll go to your direct questions before I kind of go into my, in my article. Since I've been working in Nepal since 1998, it's quite a number of years in different programs, always with education, and for the last 10 years in 2 different programs funded by the Norwegian government, NORAD, but still focusing on higher education. Since we always work heavily participatory, the voices of the students and the voices of and how we all drive these programs forward is based upon multiple stakeholders and voices, and aligning it, of course, to the policies that is forwarded by the ministry. So when it comes to our program, which started in 1913, it was planned for during 1913 through a participatory process. I may come back to that later. But we included 6 PhDs selected carefully to represent, have a gender balance, 3 female and 3 male. We also wanted a caste or ethnical balance, and we really worked hard, or at least colleagues in Nepal who knew the context and the opportunities. And that's also the criteria we have used and tried to enhance to improve access to higher education through this new approach on online learning. And the data we do have from these years shows that we actually now have reached a level of new intakes and cohorts, which actually attract so many people that otherwise never would have had any opportunity to access higher education in Nepal, which was one of the main objectives. It was enhancing access and quality for teacher training through the use of ICTs and online learning. So this is basically the way we started out. It was to equip the university as well as the faculties with resources, meaning laptops and all of these technical resources we need, but also capacity to utilize a virtual learning environment. And we selected Moodle since that is free and used in many similar contexts. When it comes to the way we were organizing our PhD students, to go back to your question, we decided to have a sandwich model in order not to have PhD students in Norway for their whole study, but they rather got the opportunity to come to Norway for each of them for 1 year. And they usually divided it in 1 semester when they started to do literary research, and later on when working with theory and compiling data, they also came to Norway since we have huge access of free downloadable publications from all over the world. They also attended some of the courses that was a PhD courses at our university and learned and picked up the way we were working and had interesting discussions with faculties in Nepal as well as with us on differences and ways people were working, while they also were integrated in other PhD students' kind of environments at our university. So when it comes to the direct involvement in student exchange, which is one way of looking into internationalization of higher education, that was the way we organized it. And a criteria for these 6 was that they also have to stay at their universities, working for a given number of years. I think it was 2 we decided on by the end of the day, 2 or 3, to utilize their competence at their own universities, since they had got funding through this system or our project. So otherwise, we have other students coming from Nepal having master programs, and we also know lots of other students at other universities, and we also collaborate partly with them. So some might want to go back, others may want to go back to Nepal. Yeah.
And thank you for your book chapter that came in a higher education in Nepal book, which is wonderful. You have documented the story of Nepalese scholars and the collaboration, transnational, internationalization of higher education is an example of your book chapter. Thank you, Dr. Carm. Now, we go back to your some of the research.
Yeah, I'm not going to use, but since we are always looking forward, I don't think there is a need to go back in, because the chapter relates to, in the book, relates to the various impacts on the first 3-4 years. Now we had Endo project conference on ICTs and education in Kathmandu end of September, where lots of scholars from the Nepali higher education environment presented, both master and PhDs, as well as faculties. So it was really interesting. And and for those who have access to some TV productions, there was a short TV commentary. Why I say that is that what I've been working with for years in Sub-Saharan Africa and other Asian countries is also how can we work together to provide change and improvements, and how can these things hopefully have a positive impact which reflects the needs where these activities are supposed to happen. So we just skip that research method because I don't think I will have time, but how we started, if we can look into that circle, it's not a very unfamiliar circle of learning. But when we started the whole thing up in Nepal in 6 years ago, we started with asking our partners, because they said, should we start doing something? We had finished one program, should we start working with a new one? And then the issue is, what do we need? Is there something that should be done at these universities we were working with? And maybe we could support them in Norway, maybe not. You never know, you know. But then, based then upon the need state, the policies, the needs for the universities to see ICTs being used more systematically, and also to see how you can reach out to students to get the master without having to stay for 2 years in Kathmandu. We had the online learning as the approach, which is fairly challenging in low resource countries as Nepal and many others, countries in similar situation. At least it was 6 years ago. But ICT's bandwidth and access through smartphones and small tablets has increased tremendously over the last 5-6 years. So now we see that the students, as well as faculties, and we have experienced much better connectivity far out of Kathmandu. So students that I'm interviewing now, they live, let's say, 120 kilometers maybe outside Kathmandu. I still work with them. We email and we have good contact. So the whole thing starts with what is needed. And we had a lot of action research throughout the whole program. That's why we know how much about what happened, where the bottlenecks were, and how to go forward. So, and we are still reflecting on the new process. And I think I will, this interactive system, I'm not going in detail here because that requires more time. Sure. But if we see the two upper triangle, the blue one to the left is the pre-project status, where there basically was a face-to-face teaching. That was the way, the norm and the culture of teaching at the universities. Books and paper were basically what was used. By introducing in the green box ICTs, revising the curriculum, uploading it in Moodle, start piloting, and now extensively working through open distance learning. Those two parallel tracks were difficult to manage within the existing structure. And that is where we now see those circles going towards the MITS, which is a dual mode, and the university. And that is where the institutional development also are very visible. The Tribhuvan University decided to establish a new center for online learning, which is then the triangle at the bottom. So the online program now being run, conducted, and implemented purely through staff and the director there, staff at TU, is being conducted through that center. And that has, of course, caused a lot of, because now many also in the green triangle will use Moodle because ICT is accessible. So even faculties, different subject areas are now using ICTs, and there is an expansion of the number of online programs also now being conducted from their own online center.
Thank you, Dr. I will stop you here. I know we have a wonderful questions from the the guest panelist, the panelist from our audience member. We'll take that question. So now I know we are running out of time as well. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our last guest speaker all the way from Nepal. He is Principal Subedi. Will be talking about Kathmandu Model College and some of the initiative that he was able to do in the past couple of years. Dr. Subedi, Principal Subedi, your turn. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Bista, for giving me this opportunity. Especially in case of Kathmandu Model College and Tribhuvan University, we are getting good opportunity, and we are making a good network for internationalization of education through diaspora networking and collaboration. I would like to share the case of Kathmandu Model College as well as Tribhuvan University in this matter. First of all, we are running 12 different educational institutions under Kathmandu. It means KMC Educational Network, and the main college is Kathmandu Model College. We say we run the programs from young to young. It means Montessori to master's level. Especially 4 years back, we started collaborating with the scholars. We are working not in Nepal, but abroad, especially in USA and other developed countries. One of our ex-faculty, Dr. Shyam Sharma, once came in Nepal, and we met together and we talked about the education system, what we are running in Nepal. And after discussing the scenario, what is happening in Nepal, we developed a plan. We developed a project, especially calling it a Project 3-Star, because we try to improve education. We try to enhance the student learning by making some kind of good planning. And we focused in 3 things first, calling it a Project 3-Star. One area was the development, teachers' development through rigorous training. Especially, we provided them the online training from diaspora, scholars from diaspora. Especially, the great contribution was given from Dr. Shyam Sharma, Dr. Uttam Gaulee, and Krishna Bista, Dr. Krishna Bista. And we ran the program, online teacher learning. And the second area was we developed student service center. It is academic service center. Before that, we were only focusing inside the classroom, but the learning could happen beyond the classroom as well. That concept was initiated, and we developed some of the writing centers as well as some incubation center, and especially some other area where the student can foster their learning. And the third segment was enhancing resource and scholarship among faculties as well as students. And we are working on that area. And what I want to focus now is, first of all, internationalization of education. What we mean is understanding the educational practices in the different part of the world, in different universities, and adopting and adapting it and localizing it in our context. We share a lot about our challenges, and some of the challenges were easily could be solved by taking the help of the professors or scholars who understood Nepalese context, as well as who have the understanding of and then knowledge of international, the universities experiences of USA and Japan and other countries as well. We just put forward our problems, or let's say challenges, and they developed a kind of solution over there. And not all the solution what they developed were applicable, but we try to moderate those solutions in our context. And now if we look our situation before 3 years and now, we can see lots of changes in faculties, especially the way of teaching, the way of planning, the way of evaluating. So many things have been changed, and it's all due to the contribution and networking by the diaspora scholars who are engaged in universities and who are engaged in, let's say, academic field outside of the country. So when they come to Nepal, we try to just catch them up, and we have already conducted 3 international summit. At the time when the scholar come to Nepal, we just pick their time. We just ask for them to provide us certain days, certain time, and according to their time, we also manage some kind of summits. And in case of Kathmandu Model College, we have conducted 2 academic summits in 2018, one in 2018 and one in 2019. And we are planning to organize the next summit in coming 2020 as well. Through this initiation, we not only just changed, or let's say upgraded or enhanced our system, but we play a kind of vital role to change our university as well. So we coordinated in a way that the larger group, or let's say the different colleges, different constituent colleges of the different part of Nepal, they sent some representatives from their colleges, and we sat together, we gathered together in a summit for 2 days and started to talk about how to plan a lesson, how to make assessment, how to make the assessment diversified, how to, let's say, create a rubric for different kind of assessment. These practices were there in Nepal, but due to the support that we got from Dr. Gaulee, Dr. Bista, Dr. Sharma, and other scholars who are not in Nepal but are thinking about the education, are thinking about how to change the education system in Nepal, we are getting lots of benefit. And I'm so hopeful from Brain Grain Center that Dr. Gaulee was talking about. We can have a large number of networking over there, and through that networking pool, we can better utilize the best minds who are serving in the different parts of the world, and we can utilize their scholarship, their expertise in our context as well.
Thank you,
And
Subedi.
due to the mentorship,
go ahead.
Due to the mentorship that is provided by the scholar who are abroad, our faculties, for example, me myself could write a chapter in the book that Krishna Bista was editor of that book. So it's all about the practical shift that we have made over here in Nepal, and the article shows how and in what way we started that kind of webinar, and how it created a kind of change in Tribhuvan University itself.
Thank you, Principal Subedi. We appreciate your hard work as our first country director of the Star Scholars Network. And this is a big legacy you are leaving for the incoming country director of the Star Scholar Network. And I was also lucky to be the part of one of the conferences, which was amazing, that you invited many faculty members from different colleges of your KMC network. And the publication, your book chapters, and the way you have been empowering your faculty member is outstanding. It's a role model, so that our future scholars in the network will also take up this legacy. It's not that easy to accomplish book chapters, scholarly research productivity, conference, and empowering your faculty member. And we look forward to working, collaborating with you in the future as well. So at the end, I'd like to take a few minutes to acknowledge our support. The first foremost, the Morgan State University for taking time to give us the platform to have a Nepal as a special feature country highlights for this year's International Education Week, for the leadership of the President Wilson and our Director of International Programs, ABP, Dr. Jakob Yastake. He's the ABP of International Affairs, who has been doing a number of projects in Nepal, partnership and recruitment strategies initiative to Nepal, and also the Star Scholars Network for these wonderful colleagues whom I had a pleasure to work with them, and as well as our members from Study Abroad and International Student Special Interest Group within the Comparative and International Education Society, and also founding director Dr. Darla Dierov from World Council on Intercultural and Global Competencies, and Professor Dr. Chris Glass, who is the founding engineer architecture of OJED, Open Journals in Education, and other our affiliated universities and colleges. Thank you so much for making this program special on the occasion of International Education Week. So at this time, we'd like to take questions from the audience. Please continue sending your questions. Let's take a first questions here in the chat room. Forgive me, I'm looking two different screens here. And also I'd like to acknowledge some of the participants who are here with us this afternoon. We have Dr. G. Joshi from California. We have Raj Saraf, Rajendra Bista from Kathmandu, and Ramesh Pathak. He's a PhD graduate scholar of Kathmandu University, as well as a faculty from a college. Sharif, all the way from Bangladesh. Then also we have our great scholar, star scholar, all the way from Midwestern University, Mr. Yadu Gaulee. So with that, and we have other 12 participants here. It takes time to take the names of all of them, but I will go directly to the questions. The first question is here from Bhupendra. He's asking, isn't it possible to provide quality education from the existing universities that equally valid from university abroad? Any panelist would like to answer this question?
I would like to, Dr. Bista, if I may.
Yes, please.
Because I have to leave for another meeting, so I wanted to take this opportunity to apologize and also acknowledge my sincere appreciation to all of you. Dr. Bista, can I share something?
Please. Yes, I stopped sharing my screen.
It is not allowing me to. Now I can, let's see.
Yes.
So I wasn't aware of the impact that Brain Game Center is making. So I do not want to take the whole entire credit because it comes from the survey of Nepali Global Diaspora. Many of you have already responded to those questions, which were very critical, and your insights were gathered, themed, analyzed, and that's where the idea came from. And also it was followed by multiple rounds of interviews with the Nepal's policymakers in different sectors, including education. This is agriculture official, about how they produce manpower for the agricultural country, as they call us. And former policymakers, this gentleman is the Vice Chancellor, one of the most renowned Vice Chancellors, past Vice Chancellors of True University. And I went to Midwestern University, of course. These are the administrators from that university, which I talked to. And also I talked with the focus groups, different students regarding the semester system, etc. And we then flew to Solukhumbu, where we did a walking workshop. It was about tourism and social entrepreneurship. The kids there were very enthusiastic about people coming to their place, but many of them were planning to go abroad. So to answer that question again, see why kids want to go abroad. Why can we not provide the right education in Nepal? That was the question, right, Bhupendraji? So these kids were going, planning, and they were also asking the same question. So what we did is we worked with this school to plan a curriculum for engaging tourists in their own places. So many of these people have now started their own businesses. So they provide hot water shower to other activities so they can lengthen the stay of tourists. But the problem is the government of Nepal is, I think, coming to terms with these ground realities. This school has not gotten the permit. So this is the Vice Chancellor, who recently retired. That is it. So I just wanted to say that the idea comes from a wide section of scholars and policymakers in Nepali diaspora who contributed to the idea of Brain Game Center, and I want to salute all of them. And I beg your pardon at this point. Thank you, Dr. Bista, for the opportunity. I have to run.
All right, thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and take other questions that we have. We have other questions, particularly to Dr. Carm. Surendra is asking, what department of Tribhuvan University were you working with? And this is with our, I think I know the answer. This was with our current Vice Chancellor, Dr. Sharma of Nepal Open University and his team. And now currently Prem Pak is the director of the same unit. Dr. Carm, would you like to add anything?
Well, it was we started out with the Faculty of Education, since we were going into, based upon the new requirements of having a master to upgrade your work from primary to secondary. That came at the same time. Mm-hmm. We really wanted to focus on masters for teachers as a TP, teacher professional development. And we went directly to the faculty level and the Faculty of Education and got an approval from the whole administration at TU already then in 2013, that it was the faculty level that should be the one coordinating and working with the Norwegian staff members on this specific program.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have a couple of questions asking about, are there any statistics of Nepalese students who are returning or the database for the returnees? I can answer that. Probably we do not have any systematic collection or the bureau that collects the data of returnees. So this is something hard to find. And probably the Brain Gain Center is one of the initiatives where they can at least, see the systematic collection, organization, or structure of these scholars who are living abroad. We have a few more questions. These questions are more about how to connect with other scholars in the overseas, probably the best way to connect, stay in touch with many of the association organizations that you are part of, and be the active participant in upcoming programs hosted in Nepal. For example, Kathmandu University, Kathmandu Model College, Tribhuvan University, they have organized several international conferences. We have one, I think recently, our upcoming TESOL conference in partnership with the NELTA and the Nepal Literary Association. Please stay in touch with those. So at this moment, I really thank you, each of you, and this you made us making our International Week successful. Thank you so much. We'll stay in touch. And those member in the participant, again, thank you so much. We truly appreciate for your time, taking time to listen to us. Thank you. And in Nepal, good night. Here in US and other places, have a good day. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and namaste.